Welcome back everyone, and welcome to another Fusion 360 tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this 3D printable mini trash can for your car. That way you can take this with you anywhere you go and use this as an accessory for your car. So with that said, let's jump into Fusion and get started. So here we are in Fusion 360. Now keep in mind, this is not a product made to scale, meaning that what you see on screen is actually just a render within one of Fusion's environment libraries. But we're going to be learning a couple of tools within Fusion 360 that are extremely useful to making this design and that are really practical to making your designs more useful. Additionally, we're going to be learning how to create this moving hinge. So if you were to throw trash away inside of this little can here, it would actually move back into place and sit normally as if a regular trash can. So if we were to go back to our design library or design portion here, we'll learn how to create this entire design from scratch, and I'm going to be walking you through the entire process of how this model works and how to get the final result once it's 3D printed. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing we need to do is open up a new design here. Additionally, I am going to be working within inches in the document settings for the units, so go ahead and change that to inches. If you'd like to work within millimeters, you can absolutely do so. You would just have to make the conversions through an online conversion calculator or whatever that could be. So the first thing we need to do here is create a quick sketch. So click Create Sketch, reorient our plane to the very top plane, select that sketch there, select this center diameter circle, select the midpoint, drag this out to about 2.5 inches and press enter. After that, finish sketch. Now you should have a center circle already drawn out. The next thing we need to do here is create an offset, or we're going to offset a plane. So type in S on our keyboard, offset plane, select the sketch, type in 6 inches, press OK. Now you should have a sketch with a plane offsetted by about 6 inches. Create new sketch. Select that newly created plane that we just made, create another circle, and let's just bring this about to 3.5 inches. Press OK. Now you should also keep in mind that these two circles should be directly in the middle of each other, meaning that if we were to reorient this and take a look, that pretty much they're basically centered at the origin of the design here. So just make sure to keep that in mind. And once you have that, let's go ahead, finish sketch. Type in S on our keyboard. Now, one really useful tool within Fusion 360 is the Loft tool, which allows us to create smaller sketches with larger sketches. And this gives us complete flexibility because now if we were to use this tool, so we select this bottom plane here, or that profile, press OK. And now we kind of have this upside down traffic cone in a way. And we pretty much have a rough layout of how our design is going to look. The next thing we need to do here is create those two separate pieces. So we have that top piece for the trash can, as well as the bottom piece for the can itself, where trash is going to go into. So we're going to type in S on our keyboard, type in offset plane, select this face here, type in -1.5, press enter. Now you should have this body with this plane directly in the middle of it, or close to the middle of it, if that makes sense. Now keep in mind, this is not doing anything just yet. This is just purely just for show. So in order to create two separate bodies to split this, type in S on our keyboard, type in split body, select this body, select this plane, press OK. Now we have two separate bodies. So we have this bottom piece and we have this top piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename both of them. So bottom and top. We can go ahead and untoggle that plane there. And now you should have something that looks a little bit like this. The very next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that this could actually fit into this top piece here. So if I were to untoggle the top, press O on our keyboard, select this face, drag this into about 0.1, so -0.1, so it should go down or inside. From here, let's bring this up to about 0.25, press join. Now you should have this circular design or feature on this larger circular can part of our design. From here, let's go ahead and untoggle the top. And if we're to do a quick section analysis of this, you can see that our bottom design is inside the top piece of our design. So these don't actually fit in just yet, and there's no cutting or anything like that made just yet. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and press S on our keyboard, type in combine, select this top face or this top body, this bottom piece here. Let's go ahead and make sure to select keep tools, press OK. Now we have this, if we're to do another section analysis, now we have this top piece completely cut according to that bottom piece. So this is going to be crucially important for later on during our designing process. So now that we made a cut into our design, we need to go ahead and start designing that flap for our trash can. So in order to do this, we need to go ahead and create a sketch directly in the middle of this design. So I would go create sketch. Let's go ahead and select this plane, our origin plane. And this directly allows us to draw right in the middle of our design here. Now, it doesn't affect our design by any means. It's just purely drawing or sketching. So I'll go ahead and take a line. Let's draw this out. Make sure that this piece to here is 90 degrees. Bring this out there. Let's go ahead and create some sort of dimension. So you press D on your keyboard from this line to this line. And let's set this to about 50 degrees. From here, let's go ahead and reorient this triangle just a bit. That way we can make sure it gets pretty much most of the design here. And we should be good with that. Now keep in mind, I'm not creating some sort of dimensions or constraints for this. This is purely just based off of visuals. So if I were to press E on my keyboard after selecting this sketch, drag this out, press enter. Now we have that slant or that kind of downward hill on our trash can, and we're pretty much about halfway there. From here, we need to also go ahead and create that section right in the middle that where the flap sits, basically creating a new body for this top lid. So if we're to go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and go back to our sketches. Let's go to sketch 3, which is the third sketch of our design. I'm gonna go ahead and untoggle the bottom, press O on our keyboard, select that sketch there. Let's bring this in to about negative 1.5, or excuse me, negative 0.15. Press enter. Select that new sketch we just made. Press E on our keyboard. Drag this up. Cut. And now we have 3 bodies. We should have this bottom piece, this top piece, and this swiveling piece for our design. Now it's not a swivel just yet, so keep that in mind. So in order to go about doing that, the next thing we need to do here is use a really useful tool called the shell feature. So type in S on our keyboard, type in shell. We're to select this face and this face here and bring this into about 0.2. And now we get that swivel aspect of our design. So if we're to go ahead and untoggle everything or toggle everything back on, create an analysis, now you have that swiveling feature that we are going to make for this trash can. So the very next thing we need to do is to create this open insert on the very inside of our trash can, because right now it's just a filled up section. So let's go ahead and untoggle the very top pieces here, turn off analysis, type in shell again. So select this top face and we're going to set this to about 0.1. From here, now we should have that swivel thing, or that swivel part of our trash can, and this open center piece of our trash can as well. So if you haven't noticed, this piece here directly interferes with this swivel part of our lid. So let's go ahead and add some chamfers to this to make it easier, so that way they don't actually hit each other on in the process. So if I were to go ahead and untoggle this top piece here, type in S on a keyboard, chamfer. Let's maybe add a point. Let's say 0.5. See if that hits it. Looks like it does. Maybe a 0.75. Let's just go with a 0.1 just to be safe. There we go. Also, I'm going to add another chamfer here, and the reason for this is because when we're printing this, we don't want to have to use supports for this design, or use the least amount of support. So let's add this to a 0.09. Press OK. Now you have this this chamfer here. So for example, when you start printing the base of this design, you won't have to use supports, because if you were to not have this chamfer here, your slicer is very likely to generate supports on this middle section here, or it's very likely to have problems during the printing process. So with this chamfer, now the printer, it makes it a lot easier for the printer to go up and start printing this section here, and also it makes it a little bit more rigid and, you know, a little bit stronger, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and untoggle the top. Now we have our overall layout of our trash can here, and so far it looks pretty good. The next thing we need to do here is to add that swiveling motion. So for example, right now there is nothing holding it in place for it to move around in the middle. Like there's nothing so far. So for example, if we were to untoggle this top piece, there's nothing there. Like it's just not going to work. We have to create something for it. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and create another sketch. Select our middle plane there. And let's also create another, or let's go ahead and toggle section analysis. And let's start sketching. So if we're to sketch this, let's go ahead and sketch this to about, say 0.2. No, that's too large. So maybe 0.15. And let's create another circle. And this would be 0.12, maybe 0.13, which gives us about a 0.02 clearance between the pin and the swiveling part of our trash can. So let's press finish sketch. Let's take a quick look. Okay, sounds good. So let's go ahead and untoggle that top piece. Select this piece and this piece. Oops. Press E on our keyboard. Let's turn off the analysis. Drag this out. Two sides. And now you should have something that looks a little bit like this. And all that we're doing here is just creating that little hole. And all that we're doing here is creating a small little gap or a hole within our swivel. So that way when we create the pin, there's enough room for it to rotate around it. So after that, press OK on your keyboard. Now you should have this swiveling part here with this giant hole right through the middle of it. So let's go ahead and finish this up. So I'm going to untoggle that, turn back on our sketch where we made that hole, and toggle back on the lid of our design. From here, let's select the middle, which is our pin. Drag this out to that side and drag this out to this side. And I'm going to press for operation instead of cut. Select this to join. And now we have this pin that sits directly in the middle of our design. So press OK. So if we were to take a quick look at this, let's double check on that. Let's make sure it sits right in there. Cool, looks good so far. So now that we have this, if we were to toggle back on our swivel, look at our analysis, you can see that we actually have this small little pin right inside of our design, and there is a small amount of clearance. So if we were to print this, the filament should not fuse with our design when it's printing, if that makes sense. So that gap allows it for it to swivel and allows it to print in place. So let's go ahead and reorient this model, turn off our analysis, and looking good so far. So we're pretty much done for this design. The main thing we need to do here is to make sure all of our bases is covered. So what I'm also going to add here is to add a as-built joint or a revolute joint feature or a joint option here, so we can take a look and make sure that this doesn't hit any part of our design. So let's take a quick look. Let's turn the top piece, create component, type in S on our keyboard, type in as-built joint, revolute. So we're going to select this swivel part here and this piece here, and we're going to select directly in the middle of that part. Press OK. So now we should have a small little flag that allows you to rotate the design all around our little trash can. And if you can see here, it looks like It looks like it possibly could hit that, but I'm not too concerned with that one because we're pushing this in and we actually don't want this to open back out like that, since that would defeat the purpose. We actually just want to put stuff inside and make sure that nothing hits it. So one thing I might do here is possibly move this sketch here closer to the middle. So keep in mind, if you were to move this sketch, it also moves everything along with it. So you don't have to go back in the timeline. And the reason for this is because we want to make sure that the center of gravity sits right in between everything. So in order to get that swivel effect, so when you push it down and goes back into its origin, we want to make sure that it's in the center, because if it's not, let's just say if it's like more to the right hand side of it, then it's not going to work. It's just, that's not where the center of gravity sits for this design here. So pretty much done. Go ahead and quick analysis. And if we were to make this a little bit nicer, I'd probably add a chamfer at the bottom. Let's say a 0.5, oh, excuse me, 0.2, 0.15, maybe. Cool. So let's add some color to this. Let's maybe make this white, white, white. And now we're pretty much done with our design. So now that our design is pretty much done, one additional thing that I forgot to add to this is adding some sort of clearance between the lid and the bottom. So meaning that if we were to take a look at our design here in our analysis tool, you can see that these two fit pretty much close to each other. So if we were to print this, due to the nature of 3D printing and how inaccurate it can be at times, we want to create some sort of clearance between here and here. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and create an offset. So if I were to type in O on our keyboard, select this sketch here or this face here, let's drag this into maybe about a negative 0.12, or excuse me, 0.012. Let's see if this gives us enough space here. We're going to create that newly created sketch there. Press E, drag this up, press enter, toggle back on our top piece, and now we have this clearance, this small little gap here. So if we were to fit this onto our design, it should fit accordingly and should be just snug enough where it shouldn't also fall off either. So now that we've created that, we're pretty much done with our design. Now, another question lots of students will ask is they'll say, okay, well, we've created our design and we've created this swivel part of our design. How do we go ahead and print this? Because some people might think, well, they might export this separately into their slicer, this top part here, or excuse me, this piece here, and then they'll export this top piece and it'd be printed as two separate pieces. This is incorrect because there would be no way for you to actually fit this into your design. So in order to print this in place, you need to go ahead and export these as one whole piece. So if I were to go ahead into my document, save as mesh, export to my Bamboo Studio program, I'm gonna rotate this around my build plate. And if we were to take a quick look, you can see that it's all in one piece. And if we were to go ahead and give this a quick slice, you can see here that this pin that sits directly in the middle of our design does not touch any part of our swivel part there. So this is crucial because this allows it to print in place and we don't have two separate pieces taking up the build plate. So additionally, what we could also do is add some sort of support for this, mainly due to the fact that since this is at an angle, it's likely possible that you know, it may not come out as crisp or nice or clean. Totally up to you guys. For me, it's not generating supports even though I have supports turned on. Let's play around with the settings, see if maybe it toggles it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If I were to add supports, I were to add some there. Now we have some supports generated. Now keep in mind, I'm using Bamboo Slicer or the Bamboo Studio Slicer. So your slicer is very likely to create different results than mine. If you were to use this slicer as well, your slicer is very likely to create different results than mine too, because each slicer, well, my slicer version is gonna be different than yours very likely, unless you're on the latest one at the time of recording this video. And that's pretty much it for this design here. Additionally, if we were to go ahead and import our bottom piece, slave as mesh, press OK. And if we were to print this, now we have two separate prints, or two separate items on our build plate. Should take us about 4 hours, which is about 110 grams of filament, which is not too bad. The print time could be a little bit better. Probably could be a couple of things we could change here. It's probably just the support that's adding about an extra 30 minutes of time here. So it's about 15 minutes. But other than that, I think it turned out pretty well. Additionally, and I see why, it's because it's at a 0.12. If we're to go to a regular 0.2, it'd probably be about 3 hours. So 2 hours and 49 minutes to print this item with no supports, print in place, and it's a fully 3D printable trash can for your car. So that pretty much wraps up today's tutorial. I hope you guys have found this video insightful, informative, and useful. Let me know how you guys' designs turned out. If you guys enjoyed it, if you guys didn't, if you guys printed it and something went wrong, or whatever it could be, feel free to drop it down below in the comment section. Additionally, if you guys want to get access to updates and the newest tutorials to my videos, I try to release new tutorials on a daily basis. So go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter if you want to get access to Fusion 360 and 3D printing tutorials. And lastly, if you guys want to support the content or my work, I do have a Patreon down below with access to a library of all the STL files I've ever made, and as well as behind the scenes looks as to how I make some of the designs I make. So with that said, I hope you guys had enjoyed today's video. This is Brandon signing out. See you guys in the next one. Peace.